We have that ready. We're going to move on to our pork tenderloin. And I do use pork tenderloin over pork loin because it doesn't dry out quite as much. You want to make sure that you trim as much of this little fat off as you can. It is very little. It will technically roast completely away if you have it on there. Once you're done roasting this, if you were to leave it all on there, it wouldn't show up, you wouldn't notice it, it wouldn't be a big old chunk of fat like on a ribeye. However, it would have cooked down into your vegetables or into the bottom of it. And since we are going for a slightly healthier look, we do want to trim as much of this off as we can. And then we also want to take this little bit of what they call silver skin off, just because it's tough. And on certain things, see this darker color? It's called silver skin. The easiest way to get it off is to put your knife underneath of it and go out one direction, hold it up, and keep your knife at an upward angle and peel back towards you. And what that does is it helps scrape it so you get most of the silver skin and very little meat on the bottom. The same thing here. Now on pork loin, this is not a very thick silver skin, so it will cook down. However, on, for instance, a whole New York strip or a whole beef tenderloin, if you leave that on there and you actually were to cut it into steaks and cook it, it does what's called baconing, or it shrivels really badly. If you've ever been out and you order a New York strip steak or a ribeye steak and you get it and it's curled up and it's kind of twisted and bowed, it's because they didn't take that one little piece of skin off. I don't care what you do, that piece of skin will never, ever, ever, ever get tender. You can cook it, you can simmer it, you can braise it, you can boil it for 12 months. It will be a rubber band all the time. Okay? So just take the extra 3 seconds, get rid of it, and be done. Okay? Now, we have this ready. We'll set it out of our way. Now, because I'm mixing all this together, I am going to use the same cutting board. Downstairs in our produce department, we have something called a poultry blend, and it's everything that's listed here. It's thyme, rosemary, and sage all in one package. Okay, I know it's tough to buy herbs because they come in larger packages. You don't know what to do with them, don't know what else to do with them. This one's nice because it gives you all 3 things that we need in one ingredient. With your sage, you want to do it similar to your basil. You want to roll it up and curl it up and get it as tight as you can, and then cross cut it. And then just go back through and chop it as fine as you can. And then we're going to add that to our bowl. Our thyme, we'll do the same way as we did the other. We're just going to peel our stems down. Make sure we don't have any real thick, chewy stems. And with this, since we're not adding any salt to it, you really want to make sure you use good fresh herbs. And don't be afraid to use quite a bit. You're not enhancing anything with salt, and you've trimmed most of the fat off, so all of your flavor is going to come from what you add to it, which is just going to be the Dijon mustard and our fresh herbs. That's enough of those. And then to our fresh rosemary. Rosemary, you have to do the opposite way. This is the top where it grows up to the sun. Grab it as close to there as you can and peel the opposite direction. And you can strip all the leaves off. And then you just go back to the top where that real soft part is and kind of just pick through it. And if there's any hard stem, you can pull it out. But most of the time with rosemary, if you can hold that top and it breaks, it's not going to be too tough. It'll cook down just like your rosemary will. With this, you just want to roughly chop it across, just because whole rosemary is kind of large. We'll add that. Dijon mustard. Okay? There are lots of different forms of Dijon mustard. You can use any form. There is stone ground, coarse ground, no ground, seeds in, seeds out. Doesn't matter as long as it's Dijon. It's all got a similar flavor. The texture will be slightly different, but the taste is what you're looking for. Now you just want to mix it all together. And yes, I'm using my hands, and you'll see why in a second. Exactly, because you can't use a spoon to rub it to your meat. Okay? Now, use all of it. And completely cover it. Squish it as much as you can down into all the little grooves and cuts. Make sure you flip it over, top, bottom, sides. So it's completely covered. Okay. Now, if anyone can see, it's always thicker and then it gets real thin down on the end. So curl your tail up just a tiny bit and then lay it across your product. Take anything that's left in there and kind of smear it back down on top just so that when it bakes down through it. And we can put this in our oven. Now they should cook roughly the same time. Okay, 350 degrees, around 35 to 45 minutes. Okay, if you feel like your oven isn't working quite as well, by all means cover it, and it'll help bring a little bit of steam to it. But most ovens, dry heat will work the best for that. You're right, that little glass one I put in there is not done. However, the one that I put in right before you all got here has been about 40 minutes in the oven. Now, easiest and best way to check if your vegetables are done, squeeze them. Okay? You want them to be somewhat firm, but they have to be, you don't want them to be mush like mashed potatoes, but you don't want them to be rock hard. Okay? I prefer my vegetables slightly firm. They're not crunchy, but they're not mush as well. Okay, so I know they're done. With our pork loin, we're going to slice it down, so it's a great way to tell how it's done. Everyone knows that you have to cook pork completely well done, right? Nope, you don't. Back years and years and years ago, you had to cook pork completely well done. Okay, and I won't necessarily tell you why. I can tell you, however, that in 1996 they changed the law, and the reasoning for having to cook pork well done is no longer. Okay, you can eat pork rare, medium well, anything but raw.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
what was it before? The reason we had
Well,
to
you could get a worm.
Trichinosis.
Trichinosis.
Yes.
That's what we were trying to think of.
The reason for that was the way they fed hogs back then versus the way that they require them to feed them now. Trichinosis is almost obsolete anymore. Okay, so it's much safer to do, not something you can, worry about. I personally don't eat pork unless it's medium rare to rare. Okay? I did cook this more done than that for you, I promise. Okay? And if not, we can always put it right back in the oven. With these, we want to cut them relatively thin. And this oven's being cantankerous again. And from one tenderloin, you should feed about 4 people. Okay? And when you break them down, 3 to 4 people out of them. Okay, you break it down into servings. I'm going to put it back in for you once I slice it down. Doesn't it? Okay. I'm going to slice them down
Yeah.
and I'll put them back in so they cook a little more well done. This is perfectly safe to eat. It will not harm you. It will not hurt you. It tastes fantastic. But just like the people who add salt on their own,
You're not looking at me.
no.
I've already fished out my phone.
I know, you have it back there. And you enjoyed it, right? I am going to show you how I would plate it though, okay? If I were at home, I'd deep fry it. Because I deep fry everything, okay? We go with our vegetables. We take our pork, and you want to kind of make sure you spread it out so you can see it. And then with our salad, okay? And then as you're doing it this way, you can control how much oil or vinegar that you want on there. And the vinegar actually goes very well with the mustard and the pork, right? That's why it's not afraid or not a bad thing to actually add it once you've done it. Because if it overspills a little bit, not a big problem, okay? We'll move this out of the way. And when we're all said and done, that's what we'll be looking for, okay?